Hello everyone, and today we are doing a deck tech for Ixhel, Scion of Atraxa. I don't know if it's pronounced Ixhel, but we're going to call it Ixhel, like Pixel. Ixhel is a Phyrexian Angel 2/5 for Abzan 1 Flying Vigilance Toxic 2. Toxic says if you deal combat damage to a player, they get 2 poison counters, well equal to the amount of toxic, I guess. Then, Corrupted, at the beginning of your end step, each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters exiles the top card of their library face down. You may look and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast. So this is kind of Abzan steal your opponent's deck Infect. So why play Ixhel? So a common issue with Infect decks in the past was that the longer the game goes, the less likely the Infect deck is going to win. Ixhel solves the problem by giving extra value from your opponent's decks to help you win through the late game by letting you play the cards from their deck. With Toxic as a new mechanic, Infect decks are easier and stronger than ever, and assuming that you're in a pot of 4, Ixhel will give you 3 extra cards on each of your end steps, so it's kind of like Ancestral Recall, maybe, a little bit. Here's the game plan. You don't need Ixhel to win, but she really does add a lot to the deck once people are corrupted. Because again, she does get you extra cards, and she does have Toxic to herself, and she's Flying Vigilance to help you get in there. So the game plan, get in early with Infect Toxic Boys to give early game poison counters because people are still setting up, then start to gain benefits from our corrupted effects and start to play our opponent's decks and just outvalue them using Ixhel. We're going to gradually hit with Infect guys to proliferate and end the game. So that's kind of our primary way. So something to note, Toxic stacks with itself. So for example, like Ixhel has Toxic 2, but if another card or ability would give you like Toxic 2, like one of your guys Toxic 2, it would give Ixhel now Toxic 4. We'll foreshadow that for a little bit later. Planeswalkers. We get a Johnny, Sleeper Agent. A Johnny's completed sometimes. If you want, you can reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or Planeswalker card, put it in your hand. Otherwise, you can just basically scry one. It's basically scry one if it's a creature or Planeswalker. You could also distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 3 target creatures you control. They get Vigilance. It's kind of cool because we do have a lot of Infect guys, right? So Toxic is nice because Toxic has like a set number, so if it connects, it deals that many poison counters too. But Infect guys naturally start out small, and they can hit for like a lot. So they have a big upside. And then we can just get an emblem with whenever you cast a creature or Planeswalker spell, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. So that's kind of cool because not really the Planeswalker part, but we're kind of creature heavy. So basically, if we ult a Johnny and then we cast 5 creatures, someone loses the game. Sounds good to me. Then we have Vraska, Betrayal Sting. I love this new card. You can complete her if you want, but I really like her 0 because you draw a card, lose a life, and you proliferate, which is going to bolster her up, all the counters on your guys, and more importantly, the poison counters on our opponents. Then we can just straight up get rid of a creature, make it an artifact with, just make it a treasure, which is nice because it doesn't get rid of the commander like right away. So they can't really send it back to the command zone. They could sacrifice it, I guess, and get the value, but it kind of freezes their commander. So it kind of shuts down like Derevi type effects, kind of. But then if a player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they gain a number of poison counters equal to the difference, which is nice because again, you just proliferate all the time. But we're really using her for her draw ability and proliferate, and there's just the removal. Let's look at creatures. Billuous Skulldweller is a 1/1 Death Touch Toxic 1. So this is the kind of stuff we want to play early game, right? Because and even late game, no one wants to block a 1/1 Death Toucher. And then if it's going to connect anyway, they'll just take a damage and they'll also get a poison counter, which is kind of what we want anyway. Blight Mamba has Infect, and then we can also just regenerate it if it dies somehow, which is nice because since Blight Mamba is like a small creature, you can just kind of make sure that it doesn't go away. Blight Belly Rat is a 2-mana 2/2 with Toxic 1, but when he dies, proliferate. So he's actually kind of nice, kind of really whenever in the game, because we attack if we swing with him, like someone's just going to get a poison counter, or if they decide to just block and kill him, we're just going to proliferate anyways, which is arguably worse for our opponent than just getting 1 toxic counter or 1 poison counter. Blightsteel Colossus, you know him, you love him. He's got a big axe arm, I guess. Trample, Infect, Indestructible, 12 mana, 11/11. And then if you would put into a graveyard from anywhere, just show him and then shuffle him back in your deck. I don't know if you can have a Infect deck without having Blightsteel Colossus in there just because he's so iconic. And if you get him on the field and you just attack someone, they're most likely dead. We have Bloated Contaminator for a 3-mana 4/4 Trample Toxic 1. Fantastic rate, just right off the bat. And then whenever he deals combat damage to a player, Proliferate. So it's actually kind of nice because when he hits a player, he already has Toxic 1. So they're really, at the very worst value, they're just getting 2 poison counters, but at the very best value, you're proliferating all of your 1/1 counters on your guys and all the poison counters on our opponent. Contaminant Grafter, 5-mana 5/5 with Trample Toxic, and then he's even better than Bloated Contaminator, because whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat to one or more players, proliferate. So, and then at the beginning of your end step, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, draw a card, and then we just put a land from our hand on the battlefield, which is just like an extra bonus effect. And this card's super cool, because one, it just makes all of our guys, if they just connect, regardless if they have Infect, Toxic, or whatever, it's still going to proliferate as if they did have Toxic. Because again, remember, not all of our creatures are going to have Toxic or Trample or have Toxic or Infect, but our opponent's creatures won't if we choose to play them from their deck with Ixhel's, corrupted ability. Then at the beginning of our end step, we just draw a card at the very worst, and then we could also just ramp a little bit. I really like this card. We have Shinorn, the big Phyrexian herself. I just think she's good because she's kind of like a board wipe for our opponents, making sure they can only have 3/3s before she hits, and then it also makes our 1/1 infectors into 3/3 infectors, which is really cool. Evolution Stage, just whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, proliferate. I like this card because one, we just proliferate whenever a land drops, obviously that's the main reason, but Ixhel lets us play cards, which is important because there's a big difference between casting cards and playing cards. You can't cast lands, but you can play lands, so that means that we can play lands from Ixhel's ability, which will help trigger Evolution Stage rather than using our own. Then we have Glistener Elf, just the classic Infect creature. 1/1 for 1 with Infect. That's an ideal one if we can hit someone with it. Grateful Apparition, it's basically blue Thrumming Bird. Just whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, proliferate. Short, sweet, to the point. Hand of the Praetors is a cool card. It's a zombie, which I think is weird because I don't think it looks like a zombie. It's kind of like a weird bird. And I guess it has a skull. I don't know. Do you guys think that's a zombie? I don't think it's a zombie. Anyway, it's a 4-mana 3/2 with Infect. It's a Lord for our guys with Infect. And then whenever we cast a creature with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. So that's kind of cool because, one, it's a 3/2 with Infect. It's also a Lord. And whenever we cast a creature spell with Infect, which is a good amount of our deck, we just give a poison counter without dealing combat damage, which is kind of a big deal because just casting a spell gives us 1/10 of the way to kill someone at the very worst. It's kind of cool. Then we have Icarats. He's a staple. He's a staple Phyrexian rat. 3-mana 2/1 Infect. When he enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. It kind of sucks that we get a poison counter, but everyone else getting a poison counter is a much bigger deal because we're going to be the one proliferating, not our counter. Necrogen Rot Priest, pretty cool. 1/5 for 4, which is a weird rate, with Toxic 2, so it doesn't matter how small he is. Whenever a creature you control with Toxic deals combat damage to a player, they get an additional poison counter, so you could even read him as a Toxic 3/1/5. And then whenever a creature you control with Toxic, 3 mana, target creature you control gains Death Touch if it has Toxic, which is great. Think about this card just by itself in a nutshell. It is a 4-mana 1/5 that when it deals combat damage to a player, they are going to get 3 poison counters, right? And if they choose to block, or they choose to block any of your creatures with, Toxic, you just pay 3 mana and they get Death Touch, so your guys just trade and kills one of their creatures. I think he's really cool. Paladin of Predation, 7 mana 6/7, kind of crazy, but he has Toxic 6, and he can't be chump blocked. I just come on. I saw Toxic 6, and I was like, this guy's in the deck. Phyrexian Swarmlord, a really cool card. 6 mana 4/4 with Infect. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 Phyrexian creature token with Infect for each poison counter your opponents control. Or have, rather. I think this guy's cool. Let's look at him at the very top end, and let's assume in our pod of 4, our 3 opponents each have 9 poison counters. We just go to our upkeep, we get 29 1/1s with Infect. Now, I know that's not going to happen, right? But I think even in a realistic sense, we can just be yeah, we're going to go to our upkeep, and we'll between all 3 of our opponents, be yeah, we'll get 7 1/1s. Or even just 6 Or no, I guess it would be 9/1/1s, assuming everyone's corrupted. I don't know. You get a lot of guys. You get the point. Plague Mirror, he's a mana dork, and he is Infect. So that's kind of cool. Plague Stinger, I kind of like the idea of having a 1/1 flying infector. Not a 1/1 necessarily, but a flying infect guy is nice to have just because, like, not a lot of decks run a ton of flyers. So it's basically if someone's not having any flyers, they just get infect, like, easy. Rotwolf, 2/2 for 3 infector. Whenever a creature dealt damage by Rotwolf this turn dies, you just draw a card if you want, which I kind of like because Rotwolf, the thing that I like about infect is if it hits a creature, it puts -1/-1 counters on it. So even if our infectors like die, or they like don't get through or like whatever, like it still really, really hurts the creature that blocked it. Skithiryx, the Blight Dragon, a classic 5-mana 4/4 dragon skeleton with flying infect, sometimes haste, most likely haste, and then you regenerate him. I love Skithiryx. He's basically, you just honestly read Skithiryx as a flying haste 4/4 with infect for 6. He's so good. Slot Singer, 2 mana, 2/1, toxic 2, and then whenever another creature you control with toxic attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So if you have like any kind of like, when we get like any kind of like those Phyrexian mites on the field, or like any of like our small toxic guys, or really any of our big toxic guys, it just makes it better for us. You know, it just gives them like larger, so they're harder to like, I don't know, I guess harder to block and kill. And then we have Tyrant Rex Atrocity, whatever. It's a 5-mana hasty 4/4 with toxic 3. You're just gonna smack someone for 3 sometimes. I think he's good because sometimes like that's all you really need. Post a nuke or whatever, like someone nukes or whatever, you just smack someone for 3 toxic counters. Like, come on, they're already like a third of the way. Tyrant Rex, I don't know who is playing Standard in the time of Ixhel with me, but he's basically better Carnage Tyrant in a way. He's a 7-mana 8/8 that can't be countered, and he has Trample and Haste, and he has Ward 4, and then he also has Toxic 4. Like, this card is so insane. He's basically hexproof because who's going to pay an extra 4 mana to target something, right? Unless it's like a 1 mana like kill spell. And even so, it's making like Swords to Plowshares cost 5 mana. So good. Can't be countered. Oh, love him. Love him. Venerated Rot Piece, 1 mana, 1/2 with Toxic 1. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, just like if we target it or just an opponent, target opponent gets a poison counter. So it basically de-incentivizes our opponents from hitting us. Also, I like it just because, again, we do want to start early game. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we have a lot of early 1-drops of like Infect Toxics that we can get down turn 1 and then just hit someone who doesn't have a blocker. Venomous Brutalizer. He is a 4-mana 4/4 with Toxic 3, which is a good rate by itself, but I kind of like the idea of paying 6 mana for a 4/4 with Toxic 3 and then proliferating. I think he's good. I don't know. Veridian Corrupter, 3 mana 2/2 Infect. When it enters, just pop an artifact. And then we have Vorinclex, which is really cool. 6 mana Trample Haste. You know him, you love him. If you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many counters. Basically, in the grand scheme of things, he's going to double up the poison counters we put on people. So now Veridian Corrupter, if it connects, she's putting 4 poison counters on someone. Or if a creature decides to block Veridian Corrupter, it's getting 4 -1/-1 counters, right? Or if we play one of our Planeswalkers, Ajani and Vraska, they ult right away because they're going to come in with double the loyalty counters. He's so cool. Battle Royale, but it's actually Triumph of the Hordes. I just like the Fortnite one because it's funny. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1, gain Trample and Infect. I don't know if you guys have ever played against Triumph of the Hordes before, but it basically says target player loses the game. And the thing that's even cooler about this one is Infect and Toxic, they like stack, I guess. So if you have like a 2/2 Infect and like with Toxic 1 or whatever, like they're gonna get like 3 poison counters. So it's just really nice. Cultivate, it's just good ramp because we're 3 color. I think it's fine. Drown in the Ichor, I have a ton of new cards in those decks. I think this set's so cool. Drown in the Ichor, basically just kill a creature. Not many creatures are living past -4/-4, and then we just proliferate. So it's again, kill a creature and then you proliferate. Get those poison counters up. Dusk, destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. The cool thing I like about Dusk as a nuke for Infect is most Infect guys are not that big. They're typically like 2-somethings or like 1/1s with like Infect or Toxic. It's good. We have a lot of smaller guys, so we just destroy a lot of our guys that aren't ours, and then we can dawn it back later from our graveyard to get all of our 2 or less guys, which is most of them, back to the field. Kodama's Reach, it's just slightly better, I don't know, slightly better Cultivate. It's a sorcery arcane. Guys, I have been playing Magic, like, daily since probably about Theros. I have never, nor have ever seen someone in a personal game splice onto Arcane, but I don't know. Noxious Assault, 5 mana, creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn, and then whenever a creature blocks, its controller gets a poison counter. So this card's kind of cool, right? One, it just makes all of our Infect guys bigger, right? And then the guys that don't get big enough, if they just get blocked, like if we have like a 1/1 with like Toxic, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like if they block, they're either dead from Infect counters and Toxic counters, or they're just dead from blocking, right? It's kind of like a kill card. I look at it as like a slightly worse Triumph of the Hordes. Unnatural Restoration, again, another like just 2 mana, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, then just straight up proliferate. I love it. I think it's so cool. Just all of these cards that just do an effect and then also like proliferate. I kind of look at them the same way of like when Kaldheim and like was coming out and it was like, oh yeah, here's like a classic effect like Acts of Treason, and then you just get a treasure along with it or whatever, something like that. I like the proliferate part. White Sun's Twilight, which is weird to say because I always feel like saying Zenith. X, white. You gain X life and then create X 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Mites with Toxic 1. They can't block, oh well. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures, right? So thinking about it like this, 7 mana, right? 7 mana to get 5 1/1s, essentially with Infect, right? And then destroy all other creatures. So if someone can't rebuild back in time, we just deal 5 Infect damage to someone on the like the swing back, whoever doesn't have blockers. I think it's sick. Instance, Anguished Unmaking, get rid of a non-land we don't like, lose 3 life. Exiling is super relevant in Commander, especially you guys have dealt with graveyard decks being more and more prevalent. It's really good. 3 life is like nothing. Life is a resource. Assassin's Trophy, just get rid of something we don't like because it's target permanent an opponent controls, and they can get a basic out of it. It's basically just Path to Exile, but everything. And I guess not Exile. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Beast Within, get rid of something we don't like. They can have a 3/3. Again, I always say in like all these videos, it's always better for your opponent to have a 3/3 rather than whatever we're getting rid of. Heroic Intervention, just kind of makes all of our guys like indestructible. Someone decides to nuke because we're like presenting lethal with Infect on the field, because that's really easy to happen, right? When we have like a lot of guys with like Toxic 2 or whatever, like a lot of Magic boomers, kind of like me, I don't know if I'm boomer status level, but a lot of Magic boomers like look at Toxic the same way as like Infect, and they should, and it's equally scary because I have lost many games to Infect. So people just want to nuke all the time, we can kind of stop that from happening. Or if we just kind of go with the big swing and someone decides to like block, we can kind of give our guys indestructible. All of our Infect guys will just give their guys minus counters or whatever. I don't know. It's mainly just there to stop board waves. Infectious Bite, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And then each opponent gets a poison counter. So kind of like how the other ones have Proliferate on them. He just says everyone gets a poison, your opponent gets a poison counter just straight away. I like it as a kill spell, and then, you know, everyone just gets a poison counter. Even at the very worst, you have nothing, like, I think it's sick. Swords to Plowshares, just get rid of a creature, they can gain life. Our opponent can be at 1,000,000 life, it doesn't matter, we're killing them with Infect anyways. Tainted Strike is such a crazy card. It is such a mistake of a card, it's so cool. Target creature gets +1/+0, for 1 mana by the way, at instant speed. Target creature gets +1/+0 until left and gains Infect until end of turn. Imagine we're swinging with our, let's use Ixhel, because Ixhel's a 2/5 flying Vigilancer, right? With Toxic 2. Let's say we go to attacks, right? And someone doesn't block Ixhel. We're just like, 1 mana, Ixhel actually has Infect. She's a 3/5 Infector with Toxic 2. Ixhel's now dealing 5 poison counters to someone. Like, that's insane. And that's not even like a crazy situation. Like, you just give it to like any of our other big guys, or straight up even better, someone just attack, like one of our opponents attack someone else with like a 10 drop or another big creature, we're just like, yeah, they can have infect until end of turn, and they just kill them by accident. It's awesome. For Vraska's Fall, each opponent gets rid of a creature or planeswalker, and then they get a poison counter. So I like it. Not each player, each opponent gets a poison counter, and they have to sacrifice it. It's just cool removal. I don't know. I like it. Maybe it's not the best, but I just like the idea of giving people poison counters at instant speed. Let's go to artifacts. Arcane Signet, taps for, mana. It's fine. Chromatic Lantern. So here's the thing, and it might be a weird take, but I used to run a mono blue theft deck, and one thing I noticed when you're stealing people's cards is if you have cards with colored mana costs in their activated abilities, you cannot do them if you don't have, like, the stuff. So let's say, for example, we take someone's, like, blue card, right? Let's say we take someone's, like, wizard class, right? We can't level that up because we don't have the blue mana, but Chromatic Lantern makes all of our lands tap for any color, while also tapping for any color. So like we can like do the abilities of the stuff we steal. Contagion Clasp, kind of a cool card. 2 mana, enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Hopefully we can just kill the mana dork, but then it's mainly just 4 mana, tap it, proliferate on a stick, kind of cool. Then we have Contagion Engine. It's Contagion Clasp, like bigger brother, I guess. Puts a -1/-1 counter on each creature target player controls, not just one. And then we proliferate, and then we do it again. So it's kind of cool. 4 mana, give 2 poison counters to everyone. I like it. And also just give someone's field essentially -3/-3. Felwar Stone, again, just kind of the same idea with like Chromatic Lantern, is just so we can also tap for our opponent's colors still. I know we have a lot of stuff that's going to tap for any color anyway, doesn't matter. But it's still just a good mana rock. It's a 2 mana rock. It's still really good. Glistening Sphere is a new card I think is really cool. Enters the battlefield tapped, which sucks. But then again, like if you're playing this on turn 3 or whatever, like you're probably not like gonna do like another 1-drop or something. But when it enters the battlefield, proliferates. So kind of playing this at any point in the game is good. It taps for a mana of any color. But if our opponents are corrupted, most likely they are, add 3 mana of any one color, and only do it if they have 3 or more poison counters. But so again, it's basically like it just pays for itself the next turn, and it's so cool. Golgari Signet, it's just a Signet just to help us get a little bit ramped so we can. We have a lot of like mana artifacts in this deck just so we can like still play the stuff we want to play, and then also have enough mana for next turn to play like all of the stuff that Ixhel's stealing. Grafted Exoskeleton gives a creature +2/+2 and has infect. We can just give it to Ixhel, make her a 4/4 Infector when she deals combat damage to someone. Cool. They're now getting 6 poison counters. And then when it becomes unattached, sacrifice it. Like if someone blows it up or whatever, like we're not going to unequip it. Is basically what it's saying, is you can't really unequip it without killing the creature. We have Lightning Greaves just to toss on Ixhel, make sure she sticks around. I know I always say like the deck doesn't need the commander, but I mean just having Greaves is just easy, just makes them stick around. And again, we're not really targeting her so often. Signet, it's a Signet. Phyrexian Atlas, I kind of think is like a funny meme because it's 3 mana, you get 1 event of any color, and then we can just make everyone lose a life every once in a while. I don't know, maybe it's not great. I honestly don't even think it's good, but I think it's just kind of funny to be like, hey, everyone takes 1. Slesian Signet, again, just another like filter rock. Soul Ring, because it's Soul Ring, run Soul Ring. Staff of Completion. This is a real beef and cheese kind of card, right? Let's go through it. 3 mana, right? Pay a life. Destroy target permanent you own. Why would you want to do that? Well, let me tell you why. So basically, if someone decides to exile one of our things, right, we can just get rid of it. So like rather than have like one of our things be exiled, we can just mulch it ourselves. So then like we can like recur it later from our graveyard. So that's kind of why, not super relevant, but like where if someone tries to gain control of something we have, we just get rid of it. Like they can't have it. Pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any color. Great, it's just a rock. Pay 3 life, proliferate. Pretty relevant. Pay 4 life, draw a card. Wow, that's a lot of life. But then 5 mana, untap Staff of Completion. I think this card is super cracked. It's sure life is a lot, but I mean, think about it. You start with 40 life. Life is just a resource, right? Until it isn't, but don't worry about that part. But like drawing cards, like how many times have you been in a game, Jack? Hopefully I just blew someone named Jack's mind. That'd be kind of cool. How many times have you been in a game you're like, man, I just need to draw a card so badly, but I have no way to do it? Like, I'm sure like I've been in games where I would pay 20 life to draw a card. And like this is only 4 life or whatever. It's a really modal card. I think it's super cool. I think it's super good. I don't know. I really like it. Marari's Wake. Couple reasons to run it. Creatures you control get +1/+1, makes our infect guys stronger, it makes them harder to be blocked or chumped. It also makes our toxic guys a little bit stronger. Then whenever we tap a land for mana, add 1 mana, basically our mana is doubled. Which is good because, again, when we're basically getting 3 cards at every end step with Ixhel, we want to be able to have the mana to cast them all. Necrogen Communion. Do you guys remember that time I said a little bit of foreshadowing earlier? Go back at the beginning of the video, you'll see. 2 mana, enchant creature you control. Enchanted creature has Toxic 2, so it's going to give Ixhel Toxic 4, which is really cool. And then whenever Ixhel would die or whatever, an enchanted creature would die, we just get it back. That's really it. It's just like kind of cool recursion, and we can, if we steal a creature, right, and then we play it, we can just kind of give it Toxic, and then if it dies, it still goes back to the battlefield under our control, which is really cool. Phyrexian Arena, it's just kind of on flavor, and I just added a ton of cards from this set because I think it's cool. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card, lose a life. Super good. We like card draw. Skrelv's, if I pronounce that right, Hive. At the 2 mana, at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1 and it can't block. It's basically Bitter Blossom, but not really. But then it's corrupted. As long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink, and that's kind of why we're running it. Like, we're getting a guy every turn, but now, like, our guys have lifelink. Most of our guys have lifelink. I think it's cool. And then we have Smothering Tithe. Again, we like having a lot of mana, so we can be able to play Ixhel cards from our opponent's deck. And it's also just annoying because it taxes our opponents. I think it's so good. Let's go to lands. We have all of our, like, Battle Bond lands, just making sure all of our opponents, they're always going to come in tapped. We have our shock lands, we can fetch them sometimes. I actually don't think we can in this deck, but again, they're there. Isolated Chapel for all the check lands because we do have a good amount of basics, and they also work against the shock lands. And then our basic lands, we have 5 plains, 6 swamps, 8 forests. Guys, I tried to find a higher quality picture of these Phyrexianized lands, but I just couldn't. I tried. Regular lands, or I guess not regular, but different lands. Command Beacon. Pay 1 mana, tap it, sacrifice Command Beacon, put Ixhel from our commands into our hand. So we don't need Ixhel to win, but Ixhel just kind of gives us value from our opponent's deck. If she dies too many times, we can just have kind of like a freebie. Command Tower, add 1 mana of any, just basically a land that taps for 3. Exotic Orchard is basically a land that'll tap for any color, assuming like our opponents are playing different colors. And most likely our opponents are playing colors we're playing. So it's just kind of like a free untapped dual or 3 or 5 land at best. Endothitrium is a plain swamp forest, enters the battlefield tapped, and it has cycling if we don't want it. Inkmoth Next is very cool. It taps for a colorless. We can pay 1 to make it a 1/1 flying infector until end of turn, which is still really neat. Karn's Bastion just taps for a colorless, and then we could also proliferate at instant speed whenever we want. It's just kind of cool to have the option. Final land, Sandstep Citadel, enters battlefield tapped. It's basically just a worse Triome, but I mean, it's still a land that taps for everything. Miscellaneous about the deck is, so it's about $450 or $460, right? But prices are all over the places because 1 isn't officially released yet as the video is being made. Actually, I'm making this on January 30th, 2023. So 1 hasn't been out yet, so all of the 1 cards that you have seen are still high in price for people speculating. Holy shit, I didn't add the CMC. It's like 3.51. It's 3.51. God damn, I can't believe I did that. It's 3.51. The curve is fine just because we're going to be able to play lands from our opponent's deck using Ixhel. Because we're not always going to get a banger off the top of like their deck. We'll probably get like a rock or a land or whatever. So I figure the amount of ramp is going to be fine. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Tell me what you want to do next. I'll just do it. Again, oh man. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.